Okay everyone, so welcome to this video. In this video we'll build our first Python image. And so our Python, so this is the steps we are going to take in this video. So we will assume we have a Python application, and then we'll create an image of our Python application using Docker file, and then we'll push this Docker file to our GitHub repo. The Docker file contains instructions on how we should build our image, and then we'll build this Docker file on a GCP instance to create our image, and then we'll push this image to GCP container registry, and then we want another VM to use this image, so we'll pull this image and then run the image on a new GCP instance. So why are we doing this? So the reason why we are doing this, I want you to have a feel of how to create images using Docker, because when we go to Kubeflow and then running our machine learning pipelines in the cloud, all those pipelines, all those pipeline components will be run using Docker images, right? And Docker containers. So having a feel of how to create your own Docker image, and then a Docker image of your Python application, and then give that image to somebody else to use is very useful. So let's go ahead. So the first thing we have to do is to write our Python application. So for our Python application, we'll be using this iris dataset, right? And you can read the documentation about what this dataset is about. But all our application does is to plot these graphs, right? So if somebody wants to use our application, if they give a command to our application should give this graph as an output. That's what our Python application does. So this is the code to plot these graphs. So we will package this application as a web application, and then we would write the Docker file for this Python web application, and then we would build the image, and then let somebody call that image and then run it, and then we will see what happens when this image is run, and then when we send a response to our running image to get some output. So let's start off with our first step, which is writing our Python application. So we'll be writing our Python application using Visual Studio Code, and then we'll push so not for now, but let's just check if this code runs. So let's just check if this code runs. So for that, I would run this code in a Jupyter notebook. So I'm back in my Google Cloud homepage. So I'm going to create a Jupyter notebook in Google Cloud, and then we will run our code. So just scroll down to artificial intelligence, and then Vertex AI, and then you go to Workbench. And then we want a new notebook instance. So if you haven't used this Vertex AI API before, or this notebook, the first time you click it, it might ask you to enable it. So just you can go ahead and enable. It's the same for every API in Google Cloud that you use first. If you haven't used it before, it asks you to enable it, and then you can go ahead and then use that API. So we'll create a new notebook. So this notebook includes scikit-learn pandas, so we don't have to install anything. And then I'm just going to leave the default parameters here. I'll just go ahead and then click create. So our notebook is created now. So it's finished creating our notebook. So we'll go ahead and then click open Jupyter Lab, and then I'll create a new notebook, which is Python 3, and then I'll just copy all this code from here and then paste it in there. Control V, and then when I run it, so you can see that yes, our code is running without any issues. So the next thing we will do is we will then have to stop this instance, this notebook. It's very important that you have to stop the notebook and then delete all resources, and then we'll go back to our compute engine. We will delete any resource that we find there, so delete that, delete. All right, so we have deleted all our resources. So what is the next thing we have to do in our pipeline? So our Python application works, so we'll create an image of our Python application using a Docker file, right? So let's go ahead and then create a GitHub repo for our project. So this is GitHub, so I'll just create a new repo, and then I'll just name that first app, right? That's a public repo. I'm gonna add a readme, and then I'll go to create repo, and then I'll go ahead and then copy the URL of this repo, and then I'll open my VS Code, because we are going to write all our code in Visual Studio Code. So I'll open up my Visual Studio Code, and then I'll go to clone repo, clone from GitHub. So we have our first app over here. I'm just going to put that in my D, and then I'll go ahead and then open it. Right. Okay, so let's start creating our Python application. So the first thing we have to do is we have to create a Docker file. Sorry, so it's Docker with a K, and then we have to create, so the Docker file is our blueprint of how our application should run, and then we will create a requirements.txt. So the requirements.txt contains all the libraries that our application would need, and then we create I'll create a new folder. So this is where our Python application itself will live, so which is our main.py. So let's start off by putting our requirements.txt. So our application would need sklearn, our application would need matplotlib, right? And then because we are going to build a web app, we need a framework that will make it easier to build our web app. We are going to use Fast API, and then we also need a web server, so that is Ubicon, right? So this is all we need, all the packages that we need to build our Python application. So let's go ahead and then now write our Python application. So because it's a web app, so first of all I would say from Fast API import Fast API, right? And then from Fast API dot responses import streaming response, right? And then I'm just going to create an instance of that fast API, right? And then I'm going to create, so it's a Python decorator, so /iris. So whenever somebody goes to this endpoint of our Python web application, sends a GET request to this endpoint, then our application should do something. So I'm going to create a function here. So this Python decorator will take a function, this function, and then do something whenever somebody hits this endpoint. And then I'm going to copy our Python here, a Python application. I'm going to copy all this without the plt.show, and then I'm going to put everything in here. Yes, right. And then obviously it's a function, so whenever somebody hits this endpoint, it should return something to show our users. So what it should show is the graph, right? So I'm going to save I'm going to save our image that we plotted, so I'll call it iris.png, and then I'm going to open that image, iris.png mode, and then I'm going to show my users, or somebody who uses this application, that image that we just plotted. So it's a media type. Media type is image/png, right? So this is all what our application does, right? So we have finished building our Python application. We have our requirements. So now let's create the blueprint of how this application should run, right? So to create a Docker file, the first thing we need is a base image. Every Docker file requires a base image. So the base image can be an operating system, a database, something that would enable us to run our application. So here, as it's a Python application, you guess that our base image is going to be some Python image, right? So if you go to the Docker Hub page, you have official images here, and then you have the Python official image. So that is going to be our base image, and we are going to use Python 3.8 Slim. So it's a smaller version of just saying Python 3.8. Python 3.8 Slim is very small, so we're going to use that to build our image. So the first Docker command we'll use is from. So from will pull the image we have to use from Docker Hub. So from Python, I'll say 3.8 Slim, right? So it's already giving me some and then we will copy. So then I want to install my requirements.txt in this base image, so I have to copy this requirements.txt and then copy it into our base image, so into the current working directory of our base image. And then after that we need to install that. So we run pip install requirements.txt, right? So this would install our packages that we specified. And then I'm going to create a new folder. So we say run make directory. So the run is just used to run commands, right? I'm going to create a new folder in my base image called app, and then I'm just going to copy my Python code into my app folder. So I'm going to copy everything into my app folder. And then, so as I said, it's a web application that runs a Python file. So how do we communicate with people who want to use our web application? So bearing in mind that our web application is running, would be a Docker image which is running inside of some virtual machine. So the only way we can communicate or allow people to communicate with our Docker image or our Docker container is through a port, right? So we're going to expose a port. So we're going to expose port 80, and then after that we want to run a command. So this is how we want to start our Docker image. So we'll start our web server, and then we'll say, oh, run this main file, right? So the main file is in app folder, and it's a main, and then we'll specify the object that we created to fast API, which is app. So that is, so if you change your name here, you would have to change that also here, and also in after the colon. So that's the name that we are specifying, and then we specify our host. So our host is localhost, right, which is 0.0.0.0, and then our running port is, as if you guess right, is port 80. Right. So this is the blueprint of how our Python web application should run, right? So after running all this, we can go ahead and then push this to the repo, even though we are not yet done, but we won't push this now. Let's just go to our next step and see what else we have to do. So after creating a Docker image, we push this to a repo, which I said we'll skip for now, and then we have to build our Docker image on GCP instance to create our image, right? So so how will we build our Docker file, right, on our GCP instance? To build our Docker file on our GCP instance, we obviously at first need our GCP instance, right? But to build the Docker file, we need we need some other commands also to build our Docker file. So first, before we push this, I'm going to create some commands that will allow us to build our Docker file. And then I'm gonna call that file, it's a YAML file. I'm gonna call it cloud build.yaml, right? So I'm gonna call it cloud build.yaml, and then I'm gonna specify a series of steps, right, on how we should build our file, right? So we will build a file, and then we'll push the file, our image that we have built, to some storage, right? And then we can use that image to do something, right? So first of all, let's see what storage we are going to push our image to, right? So the storage we are going to push our image to is called container registry, right? So we go to container registry. So if you haven't used container registry before, the first thing you see is not this, but something, that page that is asking you to enable container registry. So you can go ahead and enable container registry. So we will build our application into a Docker image, and then we'll push that application in here, and then that Docker image in here, and then we can use that Docker image somewhere in our for something else, right? So but we'll do that in just one step, right? So first of all, I'm gonna create a configuration that will build and then push that Docker image. So that configuration will be specified in cloud build.yaml. So first of all, I'm going to say steps, right? And then I'm going to specify a name. The name is called gcr.io/cloud builders, and then /docker, right? And then what is the arguments for this? So the argument for this is I want to build a Docker image. So I'm going to go to, so this will be, I'll type build, and then I want to give the Docker image, I'm going to build a name, right? So it will be tag. So the T means tag that Docker image. And then this is the name I'll give it, gcr.io/. So we need a unique name. So what I will do is go to my my Google Cloud page, click the down button here where you have my first project, and then copy this project ID. So we copy that project ID, and then we come back here, and then I'm going to paste that project ID, and then I'll specify so this will be the name of your image. So GCR single wheel or whatever first app. So that will be the name of your image. And then because the Docker file is in the same file folder as my cloud build, I don't need to specify the Docker file name. I'll just do a dot, right? And then the next thing I will specify again. So this is the configuration for build. We need to have another configuration for pushing the images to Docker. So I can copy this, right? So it's just the same thing. So gcr.io cloud builders Docker, and then the argument now is push, not build. So I can copy all this again, and we want to push this image. So push, right? So so yeah, so hopefully this would considering there is no error, this will build and then it will push our Docker image to the container registry. So let's go ahead and then just commit all this to the GitHub repo, and then I'm gonna just push that. Okay, so we are done pushing to our GitHub repo. If I go back to my GitHub and then I just refresh that, yeah, so you have everything in here. So let's start. So let's go back. So we have pushed our Docker file to GitHub repo. So now we need to build the Docker file on the GCP instance, right? So we first have to create a GCP instance, right? So what I will do is I'll go back to my Google Cloud account, go to Compute Engine, go to VM instances. So your Compute Engine can also be found here when you go to Compute. And then I'll create an instance. So I'm just going to leave everything as it is, but I'm going to change to first generation to 15 gig. I'm going to change the boot disk. Instead of Debian, I'm going to select Ubuntu. Yes, this is okay. Maybe 20 gig. It's fine. I'm going to allow full access to all cloud APIs so that we can access container registry from this VM instance. All right. So yeah, that's about it. We don't need to do anything else. So we go ahead and then we'll create this instance. Okay, so this instance has been created. So the next thing we have to do is we have to build our Docker image on this instance. So we need to install Docker on our VM instance. So we go to get Docker for Linux, right? And then I think there is some and then we have to select Ubuntu. Okay, so so to install Docker you need, so we are already using 18.04. Yeah, so first we have to run all these commands to get Docker installed, right? So let's go ahead and then run this command. So first of all, we have to SSH into our VM instance. So this is our VM instance. I'm just going to clear and then increase it to maybe 1 or 200%, right? And then we'll go ahead and then install Docker. So I'm just gonna go ahead and then copy all these commands. We don't have any Docker installed, so we don't need to remove any. So we'll go to sudo so I'm just gonna type that. So whilst it's updating, I'll copy this one also. Control V. And then the second one is add the official key. So Control V. And then the next one is this. And then we need to Docker engine here. And then we install this one also. And then yeah, to install a specific, we don't need this. So yeah, we don't need the second step because we already installed the latest version. So let's go ahead and then run a simple Docker command to check if our installation is working properly. So it says yes, so continue that. So it has finished installing. So to check if our application has Docker has installed, so let me just clear this. So then we will run sudo docker run hello world. So to pull the image. So what this Docker image does is to just print out hello from Docker. So that's what we are looking for, to build a Docker image which is called something else, and then run that image and then see some output, right? All right. So first of all, to be able to run, so now that we have installed Docker, I can make this big, right? And then let me just go to my GitHub repo and then copy the URL. So I'm gonna clone this. So git clone. Oh. So why didn't this copy work? Okay. So I'm just gonna clear this now. Git clone. All right. So we've cloned that. So I can do an ls. So I'm just gonna say current directory first app, right? And then you have all your files in here. So I'm gonna use my cloud build to build that my Docker file and then push that Docker file to the container registry. So how do I so just to check if gcloud is installed. Yes, so let me clear again. CLER. Right. So we are going to use the gcloud SDK to build this Docker file. So I'm going to say gcloud builds submit config, and then it was cloud build.yaml, and then we just specify a dot, which means I use the Docker file in that location, and then we're gonna just click enter. It says the Google API is not enabled. Would you like to enable and retry? So I go to yes. So we can see the image being built, and unfortunately there was an error. So it says unknown. If you go here, it says unknown shorthand flag T. So there is an error. So when I'm pushing it, shouldn't be any tag. So this is where the error was. We are going to commit this again. So commit, and then we're going to push this again. Right. And then I'm going to clear this, right? And then I'm going to go back. So we have to remove this first app folder. So sudo remove, and then I'll say first app. So if I list ls, it's gone now, and then I'll just get this again. I'll clear that, and then I would go to my first app again, and then submit the build file again, and then let's see. Hopefully now there wouldn't be any error. If there is an error, we'll fix it. So okay, this time we were successful. We were able to push this successfully to GCR. So let's go back to GCR and then see if our image has been pushed. So we go back to our, and then I'll type GCR container registry, and as you can see, we have our image in here, and the visibility is of course private, right? So yeah, we can edit access if you want, and then make the private public, but yeah, for now it's just private. So yeah, so this is how we have pushed our image to so we've built our image and then we have pushed it. The next step is now, how do we use this image, right? So let's go back to our VM. So I'm just going to clear this, right? So to use our image, we have to pull our image, and then we have to run that image, right? So we have to run our image using Docker, right? So first of all, we have to give some Docker some permissions. So we'll say gcloud auth configure Docker, and then it says, do you wish to continue? Of course we want to continue. So Docker configuration file updated, so we'll clear that. And then to run our application, I'll just say Docker run, and then I need to specify my where is my application, right? So I just need to copy all that, right? So I'll go to my container registry, and then the name that we gave to our application, which is the same as this gcr.io whatever. So that's what I'm copying, and then I'm gonna paste that here, and then says, oh, we have to use sudo first, and then I'll go here, sudo. So it's pulling that image that we just built. So it's gonna pull that image and then download that image, and then after that it will just run that image. It says got unexpected extra arguments for host. So as you can see, we have a lot of we have another error in our code. Okay, so I see where this error is. So in our Docker file, it should be -- host. Yeah. So again, we have to build this. So we have to commit all. You have to commit this, and then we have to push that again, and then we go back here, we clear. So sudo remove first app, and then I'm going to clone this again, git clone again. I'm going to clear this, and then I'm going to go into that directory, first app, and then yes, so gcloud build submit again. I'm going to run this again, it would so you see something interesting happening again. So as you said, it says already have that image, right? Yeah. So I will show you something when we go into when it's finished building. So let's just wait for it to finish building. And yeah, it is that's finished building. It's pushing now. So let's see what happens. Hopefully this time there wouldn't be any error. Okay, so the push is done. And then let's go back into our container registry. So here, first app. So you see now we have two images, right? So we have one that was built 7 minutes ago. That was the first image that built that had the error. And then we now have one which is the latest one. So anytime we say we want to run this app, the gcloud will Docker would always use the latest image. So it doesn't matter that we still have this image in here in our content. We can delete it if we want, but yeah, we can delete it if you want, but we will not delete. We'll just leave it as it is. And then so let's go ahead and then run this image now. So fingers crossed, hopefully there wouldn't be any errors now. So yeah, so it's this one. So I'll just type got unexpected extra arguments. Clear this. Why is it still giving me this error? Arguments host. So let me try and fix this error. Okay, so the reason why we're still getting this error is because when we pushed our container, when we pushed our image to container registry and we pulled it again, we already had that image on our instance, right? And the name was the same, so it was not going to pull the new image from container registry. It was just going to use the old one that had the error. So let's start over again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna go here, and then I'm just gonna remove that folder again. So sudo remove first app, right? Clear this, and then let's check our Docker images. So Docker image ls. So it's supposed to be sudo Docker image ls. So this is the container that we. So let's remove this image, right? So it will be sudo docker remove image, then we will use the image id, so 0d44, and then we want to force it to remove. Is it O or 0? Let me see. Image so 0d44d. Okay, so let me see, sudo docker image ls. Yeah, I must be getting tired. It's sudo docker image, so image remove So 0D44, and let's specify F. So we have deleted that image now. So now we can start all over again. So we use our git clone, and let's clone that repo again, and then let's go back to first app, and then let's build that image again. So yeah, so gcloud build submit. So let's build that again. Yeah, just make sure that you corrected that error where it was just host, but it's supposed to be dashed as host, right? Okay, and then okay, so we finished building and then pushing the image to container registry. So the next thing we have to do is to run this image. So I will just use to go back to my run command. So so this should be my run command. So let me just clear this. So we have sudo docker run, and then we have to expose a port. So we are going to map port 80 of our instance to port 80 of our Docker, and then we have to copy the name of our Docker image. So we copy that, paste it here, and then hopefully now there wouldn't be any error. So it says unable to find image, so it's going to pull the image now again with all the corrections that we made, and then hopefully it will run this. So you see that UVCon running on this 0.080. So if we go to our VM instance, so we go to our VM instance, you can see we have here external IP. So if I click this external IP, nothing will happen. But if I add /iris, sorry, so I should remove this HTTP sign. So yeah, so if I remove the HTTPS sign and then I just click /iris, I'll get my response, which is the image that we saved in our on our Docker image, which is the plot that we saved in our Docker image. So yeah, you can send this link to anyone in the world. They would be able to access this image over here. You can, yeah. So that is all for sorry that there were some errors that we had to fix, but I think it's all part of a learning process. That is all for this. So I'll go ahead and then delete this instance. So delete that. Make sure you delete your instance. So delete this instance, and then yeah, we will start building our pipelines in the cloud in our upcoming videos. So we will create an image that contains all our deep learning libraries and all the packages that we'll use, and then from there we will start building our pipelines in the cloud. So I hope to see all of you in I hope that you would watch, not to see you, but I hope you watch the upcoming videos. So see you.